requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the Town of Southborough's website at http://www.southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner by finding the meeting at https://www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technical means. In the event we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. All right. So with that, the meeting is underway. First order of business is to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
So I just have a couple changes to suggest. Is now the time to talk about that?
As soon as we get a motion to discuss it, yeah.
All right. I move that we discuss the minutes from our December meeting.
There's a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? This would be the time.
All right, so just two really quick things. So under my comments on page 3, I just wanted to clarify, it said that I was opposed to using CPC funding for the townhouse project. And I just wanted to clarify that I'm definitely in favor of using the funding for the townhouse. And then page 6, also under my name, just to clarify that the Historical Commission is in support of the Historical Society project, not the Historical Society. So just two very small clarifications under my name.
Sorry. Got it.
Thank
Can
you.
I make a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
Sounds good. Any other discussion? The motion seconded?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Mills?
We need to, oh yeah.
Mills, yes?
Murphy, yes.
Jacinski, yes. Andrew, why don't you call our names so that it's easier? Because we don't know when anyone's going to speak.
Okay, I don't have an order yet, so I'll go with Dorian.
Jacinski, yes.
Ben?
Recuse?
Okay. Mark was already yes. David, did you already go?
Yes.
Ann
Yes.
and Jen?
Yes.
All right. I think that's everyone, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Next order of business is annual town meeting 2020 recap. So I think, let's see, is Freddie on now? I can't tell.
I'm here.
Yeah, she's on.
Okay. So I know I talked with Freddie about this. I think this got sent out, but so Freddie followed up with Mark Purple in the town and the selectmen on best steps for the annual town meeting warrant articles that got postponed from 2020. And the direction we were given was they are going to be put on the warrant for 2021. Anything that got pushed from 2020 is going to be put on the warrant. Now,
It already is.
yeah, it's already on there. And then from there, it was.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt? Is there, I'm trying to find my mute button and it disappeared. Maybe I found it.
Sounds like you found it.
It's right next to the muzzle.
So So everything's already on the warrant for, that was on 2020 has already been pushed to 2021 because that was the commitment that was said by the town when they went to all the people who were, or all the, I say people, all the requesters for warrant articles for last year, that everything would be put on. So they're all on there. Now, whether or not we wanted to say vote and redo things and pull it from the warrant right before they got voted or got presented, I mean, I think we probably still have that leeway, but you know, that they're on the warrant. So I think that was one of the questions we had, and I don't want to go too deep into it because I think the one that has the most discussion, I don't want to be, I can't be involved in. So, but I wanted to lay that groundwork.
Andrew, for what it's worth, I was attending the Board of Selectmen last night. Bolsomino was there, and they haven't made an official announcement yet, but town meeting is, it sounds like without question, going to be delayed. It's going to be too cold to sit outside in March. I guess they can't make an official announcement until they have a time certain to move it to, but he basically said pretty clearly town meeting is getting pushed off. And actually there was a question from somebody in the audience, a committee member, I forget who, but asking if that gave them more time to prepare warrant articles and so forth. And it sounded like the answer to that was yes.
Okay.
I was just going to bring that up at some point. This is Freddie speaking. We have an extended 6 weeks. So I found that out right before the meeting. And because we got a late start, I was going to suggest that we can kind of take a breather and not try to rush everything through tonight because we have another meeting or two before we have to get them in.
But the warrant is closed, so we can't add anything to it. The warrant's already closed, right? We have placeholders, but you can't change it because the warrant is shut down by the Board of Selectmen. So we can.
So
Yeah.
here's the thing. We have our warrant, you have your warrant article placeholders in for everything. No new articles are going to be reviewed by the CPC, but I'm talking about reviewing whether, you know, the dollar amount, the MOUs, which bucket to take, all of that, to cram it in tonight when you're trying to get through reviewing still some projects. It makes sense to put that off to next meeting because you can look at it as a whole, all of the warrant articles together. That makes sense. That was my recommendation. You started a process in November that normally is started in the beginning of September. And with 3 new members trying to get up to speed and looking at warrant articles from last year that you weren't part of the process and trying to understand it. You know, I think this is a good, you know, not that COVID's good, but it's an opportunity to everyone take a breath and, you know, we don't have to, well, I'm going to take a breath because I was feeling really pressured to have warrant articles like this week into the selectmen. And this is going to give you a better opportunity to get it right. If that makes sense.
Oh, Freddie, we knew you were going to get it right no matter what the timing was.
Thank you for that vote of confidence.
We weren't worried about you, Freddie.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I guess we don't have to discuss any of those warrant articles.
Well, no,
I wasn't trying to say that.
yeah, I think we still want to touch on those.
But if we're not going to pull them or consider pulling them, why are we going to discuss them? Because it doesn't matter. It's already there.
Well, hold on. What?
I'm asking.
I'll let the committee decide if they want to do that or not. So,
Okay.
And we can go through as we get to them. And I think just getting updates, I think updates on those prior ones would be good anyhow. So everyone knows where they stand. But we'll get to that as we go through the project review tonight. And we can discuss it.
You never finalized the MOUs. So if you're hearing something and there's something that you think should be in it, you could take a note of it for discussion when you get to the MOU. What you think is critical to have that you want in writing that you understand if this project's approved, the obligation from the proponent to the CPC.
Do we have a copy of last year's warrant article? Is that, I didn't see it in the packet. Do we have those in here, or did I miss those in the packet?
I emailed them out,
Okay,
and anyone can Google search on the town website. It was Article 20 and 21, I think.
I don't have them, so they're not in the stuff that I have. So I'm gonna look them up. I just want to see the wording. Freddie, do you remember what the wording is for those two, or have it in front of you, chance?
Can we go in order of them when we get to them, Dorian? Because
Okay, yeah. I just want to check one thing on one of them, Andrew. Pricing. I want to see if that number has changed or if it's the original amount.
Well, in the agenda, we're going to talk about each one
Okay.
of them.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't need to speak out of turn. Okay, sorry.
Okay. So are there any other, so for a high level on the 2020 annual town meeting items, is everyone clear on the direction we got from the townhouse? They're all going to be on there. And we can talk about details as we get to the next phase as we go through this. So if there are no questions on that high level piece, let's go into the project review. We'll start with the Trails Committee. Is there anyone, I can't see because I'm on my phone. Is there anyone from the Trails Committee?
Yeah,
Okay.
Catherine's here. I'll bring her in.
And this, I know Freddie forwarded this all out. I think it was on Monday, the updated project plan. Did everyone get that?
Yes.
Okay. Is Catherine in now? I can't see.
She's
Sorry.
in, but she's yeah, looks like
she's
she's
up here.
unmuted. There.
There she is. Hi.
Good
Hey,
evening.
Catherine. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for attending tonight. Sorry about the mix-up last week, but we've got plenty of time still. So, so Catherine, if you can give a high-level overview of what you found out, an update for the committee, that would be great. And then we can go from there.
Sure. So to take up the topic of liability, I think that was a big question that many wanted an answer to. We reached out to Mark Purple, and I believe the information that was shared by Mark Purple was distributed to the committee. So everyone's had an opportunity to read through that information. Were there any follow-up questions that we needed to drill down into?
Just for if there's anyone in the public watching, the information was that our insurance covered it as long as there were proper postings that said stay off the dangerous equipment, and there was a fence and everything. So we're covered, was the response that we got from Mark Purple.
Great. And then next was, you had asked about if we were to build this trail from scratch, how much would that cost? That's a little bit of a harder question to answer, but I've done some research and I reached out to Southborough DPW Karen Galligan. So a half mile roughly of the trail is paved. So I asked DPW to provide an estimate if they were going to grade and pave using asphalt, how much that would be. And her estimates came back at $115,000. And then the rest of the trail, roughly a mile, and that's a little bit under, is natural surface. It's hard packed earth. And I have two sources that document roughly $25 a foot can be used as an estimate. And with that being a mile, 55,280 feet, that's roughly 132,000. So a total for just the trail build out would be 247,000. And then you add the fencing at 32 and the signage and installation at 12.5, you've got roughly 291.5 to build the trail from scratch. So that's that information. We've also, we've had great support from the statement of support that we put out. We've had a lot of feedback and signatures. We're at over 1,200. So last week I reached out to DCR and provided them with the 8 letters of support from the communities and the stakeholders that are involved in the Burrows Loop, as well as the signatures, and asked Commissioner Montgomery to consider prioritizing the plan for 2021. We've not heard back. I've reached out again to Jamie Carr, the director of the regional watershed, to see if there was any new information on that, but we've not heard back yet for that. So we don't have any movement with DCR at this time. But those were I think the high level questions that needed to be answered. And you saw the updates in the proposal. So we tried to capture our discussion from last time at how we would leverage CPA funding to get a larger grant. So I'm happy to take questions or provide any more information.
Thank you. So I think that I appreciate you getting the background on how much it would cost if we built it from scratch, because I think that makes a much better story to pitch to town meeting. To say, look, if we were just given access and we had to build all this, even if it, say we didn't go with, paving it alone, we're still talking, $132,000 to do this on top of the signs in that area. So, well, it would be even more than that, because the 132 is just for the one area. So I think that's a great starting place, and also for the application too, to have that in there, so that the total cost of the project that is basically being has already been done, the trail itself and the paving, that comes to what, $247,000, from that extent.
So is it your recommendation that that estimate be put into the application for education of people reviewing the application? Is that what you
Yeah,
meant?
I think so. I think it's good for the record to say, because if it was, the total cost of the project in terms of what's already been put into it,
Yeah.
we should be able to, say that, $240,000 in terms of the walking path and the paving and everything that's already there. And we're looking for $50,000 to actually just put the signage up and everything. So it makes it look like not makes it look like, but you see that the entire project is a lot more expensive than just the $50,000.
Yeah.
It's a small piece that we're looking to fund. So we'll see. I guess I'll open it up to other members of the committee. Anne, any questions?
I do have one question. So is in reference to the insurance issue and the signage requirements, is that included in the signage cost proposal that's part of the application now?
So the signage for the fence has not been quoted, but
Okay.
we have a contingency built in of, I think it's 10%. I'd have to remember if it's either 10 or 15%. So
Yeah.
that type of signage could easily be covered with the cost
Okay.
proposed.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Anne? Okay. Dorian?
No, my concern was the liability. To me, we're picking up a small liability for the town for signage, and the insurance company says we're covered. I'm good.
All right. Jen, any questions?
Nope, I'm good.
David?
No questions.
Ben?
I'm good, thanks.
Mark?
Kat, just so I'm clear, public access, that's still up in the air, but likely to happen, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I think likely to happen is the best way to put it. Yes.
And it's anybody's guess when that happens?
My understanding from my conversation in December with Jamie Carr was that there's an access plan before this one that's in the works. So it sounded like we were next up. So I think, I can't guess for DCR, but I can't imagine a reason why we wouldn't move forward in 2021. And with the traction that we're making with our statement of support and our next steps being reaching out to Representative Dykema for assistance, I'm pretty confident that we'll make some headway in 2021.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So, any other questions, Mark?
I don't think so.
All right. Now I'm going to probably complicate things. So Catherine, can you tell me now, the way I understand the application, right? The request is for the 50,000 that would cover the signs and the fencing for the trails. But then you're also looking to apply for a grant, right? That would possibly supply a much larger amount that could expand the parking area and change the access to the location, correct?
Correct, and add a crosswalk and other crosswalks across town. But there's a crosswalk that would be needed at Route 30 and Central Street for this specific project. Yeah.
And the grant, the possibility, if you get $50,000, you could get a total of 250,000.
That's correct, but it's unlikely that we're going to go that high. If I had to guess, I don't have estimates on the different aspects of the project that I proposed if we do go after a bigger grant, but I really think 250,000 might be a bit much.
Okay. So, and I'm trying to make sure I have this clear in my head, how it gets pitched to town meeting, to the town, so it's clear and concise on what we're trying to do. So I think if at a minimum, right, if you don't get the grant, then the end result would be we take the 50,000, we build the fence, we put the signage up, and we have the access. And once the access plan gets put through, that all goes.
Yes.
If we get the grant, then there would be the expanded piece that would blow out the parking, make a larger parking area, that would give better accessibility to people who may be in a wheelchair or had difficulty walking, because this is paved. And this is, as far as I know, one of the few outdoor, I don't want to say walking areas, because we do have the walking area at Trotter that you could walk on the track, but in terms of a path and natural, in nature, that there would be a few handicap accessible areas to actually do that. So the focus, what would be the priority then? The parking in the gate before you did crosswalks and everything?
Yes.
Okay.
In order to get accessible, yes, that would be the priority.
So, and then could any of that grant money be used also for fencing?
Yes. Yes. So what I would propose, and one question I would put back to the committee, is if we get a grant, we would be willing to cap the amount spent from CPC money at the 20% match. So it would lessen what we need to spend of the CPC money, but I don't know if I need to put that in the application or not. So that would work towards, it would work in your benefit. CPC's money would be, there wouldn't be as much of it needed if we could leverage the grant. So we would be willing to say, if our project came in at 150,000, 20% is 30,000. So we would only need to spend 30,000 of the CPC money. Does that make sense, the way I've presented that one piece?
I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
But the priority would still be first the fencing and the signage,
Correct.
and then the parking and the access gate. Is that right?
Crosswalk.
And we're not, yes, that's correct. If you had to put it in an order of operations, yes. But if we go after the larger grant, we would know before we did that whether one, we have permission to make this an accessible trail, the permission provided by DCR, and whether it will work given some of the challenges, slope, and other things that exist on the trail.
Okay.
So those things would have to be researched and evaluated before we could put forth a larger grant to know whether that we could do that.
So then realistically, what do you think the time frame is to actually start putting the fencing in or anything like that?
Right. So the timing, and a lot of things are up in the air and it depends. So if we were to get, so is this put the fencing together if we get a grant or if we just use CPC? What's your?
I think if you get some grant money and everything else, I mean, your ideal situation, but by the time the access plan, it sounds like the access plan won't be until sometime next year. Is that right?
No. That thing is going in place this year.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's our hope, right? That's what we're working towards. Yeah, so we put the access plan in this year. Say we go after a grant, we get awarded a grant. They have 150 days from, the grant deadline is February 1st. So that's 2022, 150 days to make grant awards. And that brings us into what, like into July, maybe? What they can make an award by June, and then it could take up to 2 to 3 months for contracting. I've not been through this process, but I have contracted with the state through my business and my work, and it can take a little while. So say we have 2 to 3 months, so that brings us out to August of 2022. And if the contract goes in place, then we can get started in the fall of 2022. And if my plan goes as according to my schedule, then we could be done by the end of the year, December 2022. However, we all know there's always unforeseen things. There's weather, there's vendor issues, all sorts of things that could bleed into early 2023. And if fencing isn't installed before, or the signage isn't installed before the ground freezes, then that pushes it out a little bit further as well.
Yeah, totally understand. I just, in my head, I'm trying to get a timeline, best case scenario. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now that I opened up that piece of it and everyone got to listen to that piece, I want to go through again and see if the committee members had further questions. So Ann, I'm going to start with you again. Ann, do you have any further questions?
No further questions here.
Okay. Dorian?
Nope, all set. Thanks.
Jen?
I just wanted to clarify. So when we bring this to the town, though, we're just talking about the fencing and the signs, right? I feel like we could share that this opens up the door for additional funding or additional possibility, but there's so many unknowns. I feel like it's just gonna get muddled on the town floor versus focusing on there's a specific ask of CPC and it's the fencing and the signage. And just like keep it really clean.
No, I like that suggestion. So you might have seen the change that I made to the application. I would just want to make sure that that is not complicating the application in any way. And then I think Andrew had mentioned it last time that it may be seen as more favorable if we can take money from CPC and, leverage it to get a lot more. And then that might be favorable at town meetings. So it'd be important for me to be able to say that in a concise way without confusing is a suggestion. Thank you, Jen. Yep.
Yeah, so I think the goal, Jen, would be to say, yes, they're asking for $50,000. And then, but keep in mind that there's already been a total of $240,000 put into the trail that we don't have to fund. Mm-hmm. And the $50,000 then opens up the possibility for grant money that could make it even more accessible for handicap reasons and things like that. That there would be a grant, but the 50,000 is still needed for the fencing and the signage.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions, Jen?
No.
All right. David, any questions?
No further questions.
Okay. Mark?
No.
All right. Ben?
Nothing here.
Okay.
Before
So,
we go to a vote, I have a comment, if I may.
Yeah.
To the chair. And this is Freddie speaking again. You just want to make sure when you write it up and double check with town council that it's written so that the funds can be used as a match for a grant project bigger than the fencing. How the warrant is written can complicate things. You can't change the project after the fact and say this is money for the fencing and the signage, and then if you get a grant, make the project parking and a gate.
Well, I think what I just heard though, Freddie, was no matter what, the funds that we're looking to allocate to this will be used for the fencing and signage. Period.
Well,
And if there's any grant money that comes available, that's going to be used for other things. But
it's not how the grants work though. I don't mean to complicate it, but if you apply for a grant, you have to have matching money. And the matching money would come out of this amount.
okay.
So I think you can keep it simple for town meeting and work with town council to make sure that it says the monies will be used for a grant for the fencing, and if you get the grant funding, like additional improvements as the grant allows within this budget. See what I'm saying? That
Yeah. Okay.
if you don't say something, you can only use the matching money to apply for that specific work. So you need to have some, you're trying to not confuse and not hide, but to also be inclusive.
Okay.
And I think we can, if the committee votes to move forward in that way, I think it can be done, and you would work with, phrasing the warrant to allow that to happen. You don't want her to have $50,000 and not be able to get the other work done that the state would fund the other $100 and something thousand of benefit.
So should we figure that out first before we vote on this then?
Figure out
What exactly we're
burning.
going to say with the warrant? I mean,
you
I have no problem going forward, but I'm just saying we want to make sure we get it right and we're not voting for something that's not going to help them get the further grant.
My suggestion is first you need to see if you agree to this concept and vote on that, and then we can work on the warrant article to get it to say what you want. You don't have to vote on the language of the warrant article when you vote on the project. The thing before you is, are you going to allow her to, not her, but the Trails Committee, to apply for a grant for more than just the fencing and the signage that would allow access with the same amount of money as a match?
Same amount of money.
For the same amount of money that's going to build the whole project with no grant. You take that and you match a grant and you can do more. And if you don't get the grant, you still can do what she's proposed in this project.
Marty, are you suggesting something? Are you suggesting some certain language or?
Well, I think it's two things, Mark. So one is, are we on board with the idea of approving the funds to be used for the project in terms of the fencing and the signage, the 50,000, and that the Trails Committee can leverage those funds to try to apply for a grant to make it bigger, and do the parking and the gate and crosswalks that would leverage the grant to make it a more expansive project. But in concept, are we all on board with that? We want to move that forward, and the actual wording of it, we have to work out, and we've got a couple of weeks to still do all that, like 6 to 8 weeks or something to get that ironed out. But are we all in agreement that that's the way we want to go, or do we want to skinny it down and say, no, we just want the 50,000, no grant application? I think that's what Freddie's trying to say.
Well, I wasn't saying no grant application, and I think you want you don't have to put this in the warrant article, but in the MOU, and it will certainly sell it better to town meeting for a project of this money, that they are a requirement is they're not going to go and take the money and build it. They're going to apply for that grant application. And then if they don't get the grant application, if it doesn't come through, then they can spend the money, right? Isn't that what you were talking about, Catherine?
Yes, that if it doesn't go through, we would spend the money on the project. Sorry.
Right. But so what happens here is once they get the public access and they have some time between now and then to build out a bigger plan, they can put that application in a year from now in February for whatever the $50,000 will cover as a match. However, they do the plan, whatever that comes out to, they have up to $50,000 as a match, and the state can give them that bigger project. And you're saying it probably wouldn't cost that much. So there would be less than the 50,000, and it's a big win. Or you don't get it and you go out and you build the original project. So there's, it's leaving an opportunity open. But if you don't write the warrant article saying you're going to do that, all she can do is apply the grant for the work that she's proposed. I hope I'm not confusing it more, but you just want to make sure you allow that to happen, if that's what you want to do.
Right. So I guess I'm going to make it simple. I'm looking to see if there's a motion that the CPC committee is would like to recommend the Trails Committee project request for the $50,000 for fencing and signage, and would require them to request grant monies for the expanded project.
You have any problem with that, Kat?
No, that sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
So moved by Mark?
So moved.
Is there a second? Sorry, who seconded?
Annie. Sorry, Annie.
Okay. All right. So roll call vote. Anne?
Yes.
Dorian Drzezinski?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Andrew Mills? Yes. Okay. So we're going to move forward. We're going to recommend that. Freddie, can you and Betsy work with a draft, or can the two of you work on a draft and what that language should look like, and then we can work with the town on terms of how we word it so it's not too complicated and confusing. I think we all agree that we want to open it up for the grant option without making it confusing to the town at town meeting and being a roadblock. So I think we're all on board with that. Does that work?
It does.
Ashton, thank you for clarifying the legal end of it for me. And a couple of other members too, but that was my biggest concern. So thank you for doing that extra work. Sorry.
No, the committee appreciates all of the questions. I think it's a great opportunity to kind of get some of this out and before town meeting and really be prepared for some of the questions that will be asked. And it just puts the application in a much better position. So thank you everyone for your time on this. I do have a couple questions if you don't mind, and I can be quick. As we approach whatever date the new town meeting will be, is it standard we want to make sure that the town has adequate information about the application and such? So is there a protocol that we follow, an applicant follows to help educate town voters before town meeting, so it's not the first thing they see when they get there, and they can kind of answer questions in advance and streamline the process?
Yeah, so great question. And sorry, typically what happens is as we get closer to town meeting, there will be a selectmen's review, and they go through all the warrant articles and they ask questions on it. So the expectation is not only will be there, or I'll be there, and probably Ben, but that you would attend as well to answer any specific questions about the request and how it's going to get implemented. And if if you're talking about crosswalks, have you already talked to DPW where the crosswalks would go? And which I assume, since you're already talking to Karen, you've done that, but that type of thing. And then there's also a review too with the advisory committee, where they would ask their own set of questions about the project. What's the benefit? And I think that's where the additional cost of what it would be if you built it from scratch is really going to help let them see that, this makes a lot of sense from a financial standpoint, that we're only putting $50,000 in compared to building it from scratch. It would be, $300,000. So I think that's helpful. And we'll be in touch as we go through and the final wording of the warrant article too, as we get there.
Okay, and if the committee wanted to do a step further and offer a listening session or a Q&A for folks in town that had questions, would we, is that open to us to do so?
If you want to do one on your own, yeah, that's fine. We haven't typically done that in the past. But yeah, that's fine with me.
Great.
Anyone opposed to that? I guess not.
Wonderful.
Also ask them to be prepared to give a presentation at town meeting.
Oh yeah, that's it.
It's not your warrant article, so it's through the CPC, but CPC usually.
Oh, good, another public speaking opportunity.
Oh,
Yep. So,
Great.
yeah. So the expectation at town meeting is that Catherine, you'd be there, or someone from the Trails Committee to field any questions that might come up from town meeting floor.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate everyone's time and effort.
Great.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Catherine.
Have a great night.
So done.
All right. So the next one is the St. Mark's Bell Tower. I am going to recuse myself from that. So Jen, if you can put me in the waiting room or something, that'd be great. And I will concede the chair to Ben.
I need to recuse myself as well as a member, so me as well.
Gotcha. I'll put you in the waiting room.
Okay, thank you. Do we have someone here from St. Mark's to update us on the application and what's happened since we last discussed this?
Yeah, it looks like Brad's in the audience. Give me a minute.
Hello. Yes, this is Brad Blanchette from St. Mark's Church. Also, Mark Weiler is in there, and he's going to be leading the discussion. But,
All right,
I'm here for
joining.
color commentary, since I'm close to the project as well.
All right, Mark's saying he just needs to unmute.
There we are.
Okay, you should be able to hear me.
Loud and clear.
So, a quick question. So, I mean, Mark and I have a presentation to share with everybody. I know there's some of you have seen this in the past, some of you have not. Just to get an understanding, and welcome the new members, those folks, I don't recognize your faces, but what exactly, just so we can really tailor the discussion to what you're looking for, but what exactly are you looking to get out of this discussion? I mean, we have a PowerPoint to share about the history, the background of the tower, what we're looking for. Is that what everyone is looking for? Just a refresher?
Where it's such a strange series of events. You know, that we voted to move this to a prior town meeting. It was delayed, and it's just such a strange series of events. We now have a couple of new members who a couple of meetings ago expressed some interest in hearing more about this. The intention is not to conduct a new vote over this. I mean, certainly if the majority of the members felt very strongly about that, I guess we could ask the selectmen to revisit it, but that's not our plan tonight. We just wanted to an update for all of us and an introduction to the project for those who didn't take part beforehand.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Hey, Mark, would you mind sharing? Yeah, we do have the PowerPoint. Some of these slides will look familiar to you, but we do have a few updates as well. So Mark, if you don't mind.
So I'll share the presentation. Is that what I'm allowed to do at this stage?
Yes, whoever.
Okay. And let me host disabled participant screen sharing.
All right, let me see.
Yeah. This is where it gets really technical.
Yeah, this is where it gets fun. I know.
Yep.
Wait a second. All right, now you should be able to.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
Yep.
I'm going to share screen too, and then I'm going to launch the PowerPoint and make sure I can put it into presentation mode. There you go. All right. All right. So why don't we, Brad, do you want to lead off? I'll be your slide.
Sure.
person.
Yeah. So a little background. St. Mark's Church was founded by Joseph Burnett, the famous Joseph Burnett that has that beautiful house. I call it Route 30, but it's probably Main Street, but closer towards Westborough. And one of the things that I noticed when there was funding, they were looking for funding to preserve Joseph Burnett's legacy. There was a couple of people that just mentioned like, okay, this is something that's really important to us as a town. And one of the things that we still hold dear at St. Mark's is it's still free to all with no distinctions as to wealth, color, race, or station. I mean, that's something we still hold to this day. And I don't know how many people know that St. Mark's was founded by Joseph Burnett. All right, next slide, Mark. And so just to give you a little bit more background, the land was donated by Joseph Burnett. The church itself was built in 1863. The tower is actually freestanding. It has no religious, I always screw it.
Iconography.
Thank you. I cannot do that word. And it's freestanding. It was added in 1891, and it's completely on its own. Yeah, no religious depictions. It's just part of the fabric of downtown Southborough. And it's been a little while since I've been up to speed on what's going on, but I know the Southborough Historical Commission is trying to get downtown Southborough, which includes Pilgrim Church, St. Mark's, Library, and Town Meeting Center on the National Historic Registry. So this is just part of the fabric of the church. Of the exact town, of the town in downtown. Next slide, Mark.
Sure.
Any questions though? Any questions on how the tower kind of somewhat differentiates from the church itself?
I have a question. So it has been described as a freestanding structure not connected to the church. Is there any sort of connection in terms of worship? And that question is kind of driven by what I've been reading on what the connection is. But how is that structure connected to the church?
Yeah, I mean, there's, and Mark, you can feel free to chime in, but I mean, there is a walkway, but the church stands on its own footing. Like we were saying it was added 30 years later, and it was more for people in town to understand. I mean, obviously nowadays it's kind of antiquated, but understand what time it was during the day and things like that. And so there is a little walkway there, but there are no religious ceremonies. Mark.
There's only an entrance to the church.
Yes.
Under there. That's all there is. And the tower provides shelter as you're standing before going into the church. That's it happens to be the main entrance of the church, which is typical for that style of construction. The church is modeled after a similar church in Kent, England.
Yeah, Alexander Etzi was actually the original designer, and he was the person that designed Southborough Town Hall as well.
Thank you.
So Mark and myself are not the right people to answer any questions beyond what you're seeing on this slide. But just over time, I mean, it was 1891. I mean, we've done our best to keep it up. But over time, it's just a lot of wear and tear, obviously New England winters and things like that. And so this is why we're asking for help. Moving forward, and I know this was a question in the application, is the annual maintenance will fall on St. Mark's. So this is really a one-time recommendation, or not recommendation, a request as far as trying to help keep this tower up. And so we're working with Spencer, Sullivan, and Vogt, the same architectural group and preservation group that is working with the Southborough Library. And they put all this together, and this really is just showing the wear and tear of the tower.
Right. So you're seeing north elevation, north wall. Then there's another slide for south elevation, south wall. And
red is bad.
Another one for the west side.
Yellow is okay.
That's helpful.
Yeah, it's like looking at one of those weather maps,
Yeah. People are calling in asking about what that pink stuff is. So that, Brad, I apologize for the lack of detail, but there is a report that Spencer, Sullivan, and Vogt put together, which can be referred to for a lot of the detail related to this.
Yep. And I'll be happy to send it out. There's a whole folder of information about how the fact that Southborough of St. Mark's is eligible for the National Historic Registry, as well as our comprehensive report on the tower itself. So I can share all that with everybody after.
Right. So the group should be aware, especially people who are maybe new to the committee, that the Massachusetts Historical Commission did provide a $50,000 matching grant for phase 1 of our work. And that phase 1 work was done within the summer of 2019. And as a result of that work, it required us to enter into a preservation restriction agreement. So the agreement acknowledges the premises are historically significant, eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places, an acknowledgement that preservation of the premises are important to the public for the enjoyment and appreciation of architectural and historical heritage, and that St. Mark's agrees to preserve historical architectural characteristics and be responsible for the maintenance and future funding and seeking financial assistance from any source available to it. That's literally wording from the agreement. So hence the reason why you have all been involved and partnered with us and graciously gotten our request to the point where it is today.
Right. Yep. And just to summarize, and this basically means, and the state owns this, not the town. And so anytime we request money, we can't just, Mark and I can't just go to Vegas, or we can't just sell it, sell the property. I mean, this money is going directly and earmarked towards the tower. And there are multiple stopgaps there to understand. So people know that the money is going directly towards this project itself and not anything else.
And here's a summary of the funding sources. Brad, I think, has already mentioned that the cost of the project after performing phase 1 of the work, they identified some additional deterioration that would need more funding. So this is what resulted in we have a total project cost of $750,000, which is acknowledged in the application. And so we have a $350,000 capital campaign commitment that has been the pledge commitment has been reached, has been obtained by the parishioners of St. Mark's. So there is, some what you'll call a skin in the game, so to speak, a commitment from the parish itself to make a substantial contribution to this, above and beyond what people already contribute to the annual support operating budget. Are there questions about funding at this stage from sources? Nope.
Well, can I ask one question, Mark? When you got the grant from Mass Historical, was there any discussion about that, it being problematic, that this was in any way affiliated with the church?
So the process, the application process was all post ACTON versus CAPLAN. And the Massachusetts Historic Commission did look over our application for context related to any religious iconography. And to this day, they have guidelines within their, right on their website that explain the importance of making sure projects are not in any way associated with religious depiction of any icons. That's very important to them. They're paying attention to the results, to the ruling, and being respectful of it when they're granting to churches. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, Mark, and one of the things that they're very clear about, and they want to make it very clear, and I hope we make it as crystal clear as possible, that this money is going towards, and they say the envelope of the building, which means, and we'll get to this in a couple slides, I mean, some churches are asking for new roofing. They're asking for entrances that are American ADA accessible, things like that. The CAPLAN versus ACTON part of it was, and they were actually asking specifically for stained glass windows with pictures of the cross and Jesus Christ. And so now what the state's doing, and what the Community Preservation Coalition of Massachusetts is also looking at, is because no one got a really good answer from the result of this. Acton, I believe, went forward with the taxpayer funds, but again, this is just the tower. So we're not saying, okay, we want this money for the tower, and like we're going to put in new pews, we're going to New Oregon, and we're going to get new Bibles, or anything like that. And there are stopgaps, like I was mentioning, that says this is where the money is going, and this is where, and we will show you exactly what's happening.
Right.
I hope that helps.
Yeah. I wanted to point out that the town council I hope you're all aware, Aldo Cipriani had provided an opinion letter related to the Kaplan case for this project. And his opinion, and this is just, you could go to the 3-page letter, but the bottom line of what he had written is that the grant, if awarded, appears to this office to be fully defensible. So I don't know what has happened since that letter that has possibly provided any additional information or context or value to your committee or the advisory committee or to town committee members.
Yeah, I believe we received another piece of correspondence from the Freedom from Religion Foundation, I think is
Yes.
yeah.
Yep. And our legal counsel from the Episcopal Diocese did engage with Mr. Cipriani because I believe he was the person from that was directly responsible for responding to that.
Mhm.
I don't have a direct response or information results from whatever that meeting was.
We also, our consultant, Freddie Gillespie, also contacted the Community Preservation Coalition and discussed it with their, I believe, the director, Stuart Saganar. And I believe everyone on the committee got a copy of that correspondence via email from Freddie. It was enlightening to read. I think the general thrust of it was that you know, they don't actually have standing to file a suit, not being residents of the town. That was the most important point that I drew from it.
I appreciate that feedback. We didn't have that information.
Yeah.
One other.
That's good to know, though.
Yeah. So you already know about Joe Hubley's endorsement from the Southborough Historic Commission. I won't really harp on that, but there's support and emphasis on the fact that it's related to historic restoration, and it's not more than that. The Massachusetts Historic Commission did send a letter to Andrew Mills in September of 2020. So I don't know if copies of that letter were sent to you, but that letter outlined the scope of work that was performed with the receipt of that $50,000 grant money paired with the $50,000 supplied directly from St. Mark's parishioners through the capital campaign. So that's just what's outlined there. And then, you know, his last statement in the letter, I understand, is I ask that you give serious consideration to helping preserve this important community asset through a CPA grant. So I don't know what has been done further since that. Did you all receive that letter, a copy of it from Andrew?
Several months ago, I believe we did.
Okay, terrific.
Okay.
So here's just to summarize, we don't want to take a lot more of your time unless you ask for it directly from us, but there are a number of congregations, churches that have that received funding since the Kaplan Acton ruling, Southborough being one of them, St. Mark's 2018, 2019. In the context of Community Preservation Act funding, there's a long list. This is just probably the top tier list of the more significant dollars, but all projects related to church tower, Old West Church Tower, First Baptist Church Tower. These are structures that just take a beating over time. So Southborough's not alone. We're not alone in this quest for stepping forward and requesting funding for tower work. Just lastly, I wanted to share with you, I live in the town of Concord. In May of 2020, there was a funding request from the CPC in Concord to request funding for repainting of the Belfry Town Clock Tower, dome gilding, and the clock faces and the weather vane. That's a First Parish Unitarian Universalist. And then there was a funding request as well for Holy Family Parish Rectory, which is maybe a block away in downtown Concord, pretty close to the Colonial Inn, if you're familiar with Concord. This was a project for replacing the roofing tiles, which are ceramic, with like matching ceramic tiles to retain the historic character of the rectory. And these properties continue to be, this one's being a gut rehab, the Holy Family Parish, but they intend to occupy it with parish offices and space for meetings. They're both active churches. So I imagine with the coalition, Freddie, I don't know if you've had conversations with anybody in Concord, but there is a Mr. Krasner, who is the CPC chair, or at least he was the chair as of last May. The town of Concord did move forward with their meeting to pass these two projects in September of 2020. So, and Concord is right next to Acton, those towns abut. So in terms of the Acton CAPLAN case, yeah, it's noteworthy. Are there questions?
Yeah, thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the committee? Questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, well, thank you very much. So like I said before, this is, it's something that we previously voted to move forward to town meeting. And just with the series of events that we've gone through, this sort of unprecedented chain of events, we felt it would be helpful to get everybody back up to speed prior to this next town meeting, which I think you heard is probably going to be pushed off a little bit further. But thank you very much for taking the time to come in and speak with us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right. So Andrew, is he in the waiting room? Can he be promoted?
We'll bring him back, and Annie.
Thank you.
Ben, I have a question. Do we have John Butler speaking tonight? Presenting
I'm sorry. I
his
didn't.
his view on this since we brought St. Mark's back in.
He's not in the. He was not in the waiting room. My fault. I didn't ask for public input, and I apologize for that. Thankfully, there's nobody waiting to speak on it.
Did he know we were doing this? Did someone from the committee reach
I
out
don't know
to
that
let him know that St. Mark's was presenting again tonight since he
Can I
presented
step
last
in?
time?
This wasn't like a review of their application. It's already on the warrant. This was basically for the members who hadn't been here, just to be brought up to speed. So I didn't even, and nobody previously thought of mentioning it.
Oh, well, I would have thought that, yes, I understand Kevin St. Mark's present again to the new members, but I would have also given an opportunity to the opposing viewpoint on this to also speak to the new members. So I think that he should be given an opportunity at the next meeting to do so. So they hear both sides of it. Just my opinion.
Thank you, Dorianne. I will say it was on our posted agenda, but it sounds like there was no specific outreach to Mr. Butler, from whom I'm confident we'll be hearing on town meeting floor at the very least.
May I say something on that?
Please.
As chair of the Open Space Preservation Commission, I have been told that you don't invite specific members of the public because you start to get in trouble. that you invited one member and not another, but you can have like the presentation from St. Mark's. It was on our agenda. That's just what I had been told, that I was not allowed to pick and choose who I invited to come to a meeting. But
Okay.
you know, this
Out of
committee can decide
courtesy,
differently.
Freddie, he should have been invited. That's just my opinion. He
who-
spoke up very strongly against it, and there was only the two groups. It was St. Mark's and John Butler, who gave us presentations previously. So to me, and I understand it's an oversight. I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but my feeling is he should be afforded the opportunity to speak to the new members of this committee regarding this article, this warrant article. That's not my decision. That is just my opinion as a board member. I'm just voicing my opinion on that. That's all.
Thank you, Dorian.
I'm not accusing anybody of anything. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just saying he needs to be afforded an opportunity to be fair.
Thank you. So Andrew, I think it's time to hand it back over to you.
All right. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda was Recreation Calander Field. Is Tim still out there?
Right here. Good evening.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good, good. So I know there were a couple of emails that Freddie forwarded along to everyone on I think it was yesterday, about Calander and the update. But Tim, similar to the St. Mark's Bell Tower, if you can give an overview for the new members, we have quite a few new members. What the initiative was, the involvement the selectmen have had with this along the way, because it wasn't just there were a couple of steps throughout the way, and to get to this point, that'd be great.
Sure, absolutely. And I may defer to Jen a little bit for the beginning steps, just because this whole project did begin prior to when I came into office. But the gist of it is that we're looking for support so that we can address some issues at Calander Field here in Southborough, one of our soccer fields. We have a significant drainage issue going on in that field that has really rendered the field unplayable. I mean, I guess that's one of the updates this past season. We did have a full soccer season, but we weren't able to get a single game in on that field. And I think we had one practice until they called it quits because it got too bad. So we're looking for support so that we can address that drainage, address the issues that we've identified, which has to do with the runoff coming from that slope next to the field, the clogging of the drainage structures and swales that surround the field, and then the installation of also proper drainage and material on the field itself. If you guys are familiar with the other projects we've been kind of involved with the past year or so, DePetrie Field was just renovated, and somewhat of the same drainage system and some of the same work that was done down there. It's almost a mirrored project here at Calander. But Andrew, as you mentioned, this has been a couple-year project. The first step of this project, I believe it was the request of the selectmen, is that we go through steps prior to coming to you for the full project funding. Kind of, I would say, safety gates to make sure that we just don't say, hey, we need this much money, and next thing we know, the project doesn't work, or it's not going to be enough, or it's not a viable option. So I believe there's 3 phases we went through of approval with the selectmen of getting a proper engineer and architect on board, having them go out, having them survey the grounds, address the grounds, see what needs to be done, and then create the proposals from there, as well as the pricing. So we went through those phases. I came in during phase 2, phase 3, and got those done. The selectmen were briefed on it. The selectmen showed their support on it to continue. And that brings us to today. Before everything got moved from last go round, there were a lot of questions still, I think, from the public, as well as this board and as well as the selectmen, if our proposed plan still would mediate the issues that we have out there, specifically with the runoff from that hill next to that, really drains down into the field, as well as the swale. So what we did on Recreation's dime is we brought in another third-party engineer, Insight Engineering, and he did his own independent review of that site, I sent that. That was part of one of the attachments that was sent to everybody. You could see he went up into the woods. He climbed into the woods. He saw everything and went through everything, and he matched it up with the original plans that were the original build from the Carriage Estates, as well as the proposed plans that we put forward through through Traverse Landscape Architects. And he did agree, and he did put in writing to his name that what we have proposed, he believes should mitigate the issue. So we're pretty confident that what we have still is going to take care of it, and we're still in very much need of help down there on that field. So hopefully we still have your support, and hopefully town meeting will too.
Great, thank you. So I'm gonna go down the list to see if there are any questions from the committee. So Anne, start with you.
Yeah, I just have a really quick question. So I seem to remember that something about this project has already come up at town meeting a couple years ago. Can you give us some background on, or me, just because my memory isn't very clear, what that project was and how that differs from what we're looking at now?
Sure. Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the initial funding was for those first phases to receive the first initial work of taking a look at the field and making sure that it's something that we can take care of. So it was a smaller chunk of change, so that we can get an architect and engineer on board to take those first three phases to get to this point.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and maybe just to add just a little color to it. So it initially went forward as looking for the full amount, knowing that we need to first do this legwork to make sure we could fix it. That didn't pass. It got, there were a lot of questions raised about whose responsibility it was and whose land it was. So the Board of Selectmen asked us to revisit that. So it didn't pass the first time. It came back at special town meeting and turned into this phased approach that went through. So that's what this is.
Great, thank you. And no other questions for me.
Great. Dorianne?
Well, I just have to say, I was very much against this when this started because of the drainage from Carriage Hill and the retention fields that were not working correctly. And I am so excited and happy that we have finally figured that out, and we are going to go forward and fix this field. So you have my support 100%. I am thrilled. Thank you, thank you, thank you for taking care of this. I am.
You go. You get your
thank
song.
you. I'm really proud of my recreation people. I'm very proud of you guys. Great job.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Great. Jen,
All right, no more questions. We're good.
Jen, I'm going to skip you because I think you're in favor of this and you know so much of it. David.
I have no questions other than what song were you going to play?
I don't know. I never know.
We are the champions.
Mark, any questions?
No questions. Nice job.
Thank you.
Ben?
Yeah, just a couple of quick comments. First, I was thrilled to see that you brought Insight in to give an engineering review. Were they recommended by the landscape architect? Is that, I was just curious, because they're out of Rhode Island. I was just curious. Is that?
Yeah, I know him from other projects as well. So when his name came up, it was kind of a mutual, yeah, let's bring him in type thing. So it was somewhat unbiased. I was down there with Karen Galligan, so it was just the three of us through the whole thing. So I didn't. If you're thinking it was maybe influenced, I don't think it was. I was pretty happy about that. And I'm not saying that's what you're thinking. I'm just.
No, I was just curious. In fact, the town's engineering consultant that Karen uses is also out of Rhode Island, Parkworth.
Okay.
They're out of Rhode Island as well. I was just curious, and I'm an engineer also, so I checked to make sure he's licensed in Massachusetts, and he is. And it looks like he did a very competent engineering review. I'm glad you have an engineer on board because I'm also the Conservation Commission representative to the CPC. I think I mentioned this once before, but you're going to be disturbing more than an acre of land, and that triggers the threshold for a stormwater management permit. You're going to have to seek from the Conservation Commission. It's an application that, at the very least, contains a lot of information prepared by an engineer, and typically the whole thing is prepared by an engineer. So you've got somebody on board familiar with the project. It sounds like you're set up to get that application done. I'm glad to see that. I just wanted to bring it up again so that it doesn't catch you by surprise when the time comes. I would recommend, as soon as you assuming town meeting approves the funding, I would recommend your very first step be to engage the engineer to get that application package together so that you can get the permit, which needs to be in place, of course, before you start site work.
Yep, and I'm already talking to Melissa Danza about it as well. She's aware of the project, so we're on it.
Fantastic. No, she'll have better information than I do. She's the one. I'm glad to hear it.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Jen, any questions?
No.
Okay. The only question I had, Tim, was I noticed it talked about a funny way of mowing. Is that just before, like, is that ongoing, or is that just a one-time thing before the work gets done?
The phrase mowing, as you mean? Yeah, it's a one-time thing. It pretty much skins the top layer, per se, to an extent, so that new conditions can be put down, and then new seed and soil on top of it. So,
and I assume whoever is going to be mowing it ongoing is in line with whatever is going to happen for the ongoing maintenance.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Okay.
So DPW most likely is going to be taking it over just to ensure, like they did with us down at DePetrie, and similar to DePetrie, we plan on giving them a pretty comprehensive kind of date by date to get it to where it needs to be, and then a regular schedule, so, which worked out with DePetrie. So we see no reason why it won't work here.
Okay.
No.
Great. That's all I had. So, and this one, like, this was a carryover from last year as well. So, if there aren't any other questions, we'll leave that one alone, and it'll go over to, well, it's already on the warrant for this year. So the next piece, though, we had an update on the basketball court. Yeah. So Tim, you're still on, right? You can't really tell. All right. So that I know the basketball court, the committee, we haven't talked about this specifically. Tim, you and I have a bit in emails and a couple of voicemails back and forth. If you could give us an update on the basketball court, because I think my understanding was that the last bill was a complete project, but if you can just update us on this would be great.
Sure. Yeah. So the billing aspect of it, I guess to address that for Freddie, is complete. Everything else that'll be going on is on the town's dime. So when it comes to the billing, that can be closed out. So about a month or two ago, the paving and the groundwork, it was a gradual process with the help of DPW, was done. So the long-awaited basketball court down at Fayetteville Playground is now installed and lined completely and open to the public. We have a little work to do in the spring. If you've been down there, you notice in order to get it at grade and flat, the leveling all around it, you'll see kind of grass and then the pavement. So there's a pretty significant lip on all four sides of the court. So in the spring, it's DPW's plan to go out, kind of build up a berm and build up the soil as necessary and plant fresh grass in the growing season, so that it's a gradual incline onto the concrete. We did find, and Andrew, you did mention this, as you said, we've talked back and forth a little bit. There has been a little settling underneath the court. So you'll see, unfortunately, you'll see when it does rain, there's some puddling towards the middle of it. I have talked to Karen Galligan about that. And the plan moving forward is that she wants to wait and see in the spring, once the ground gets much drier, to see the impact of the settling. It is, wet ground by nature, being so close to the reservoir there. So that was kind of unfortunate. When we shot the lines and we did the grade, everything showed it perfectly fine, but it's unfortunately one of those things. And if it gets much worse, it's our plan to cut that one area, fill it in back up to grade underneath, and then repave. So fingers crossed it doesn't get worse. It hasn't been too bad, but obviously being a new court, brand new construction, we want to make sure it's the best it can be. But that's where we're at there. Just little things to clean up, but the bulk of everything is pretty much done.
So was there any guarantee on the paving piece of it? Like, so from our perspective, right, or my perspective, if we, use up all the funds and then the project's quote complete, and then all of a sudden, you know, if it does require new repaving and everything, where's that money coming from? Like, we lose all leverage as soon as we pay the final bill.
Yeah, so the issue that's causing it was not done by the contractor. The work that the prep work that would, you know, quote unquote, be the cause of the settling was not done by the contractor. That was done in town. So we don't have any leverage at all anyway with the paving, unfortunately, with that contractor.
So did you get the pictures I sent you? I emailed or texted you some pictures?
No, I did not.
Okay. I'll email them to you, but there's also like two distinct lines, like from where they paved. It looked like there were 3 passes that they did with the paving that go down the, like they did 3 passes with whatever the machine is for the paving, and it doesn't like line up correctly. And it's, I mean, I guess the waviness can be addressed with the settling, but you can see lines like from one end of the court all the way to the other, where there's a unevenness in the pavement.
Okay.
So then you said that there's going to be additional scaping around the edge of the court. Is it's going to even it off? Because and I'm asking because I talked to one parent who was having a basketball practice for their 5th grader, I think, down there, and he said one concern he had was when they do layups, you go right off the back of the court.
It's just a drop. Yeah. No, yeah. So like I said before, we plan, especially on the backside, which I'm sure it was is the most of concern. I talked to Chris over at DPW, who's really led the project, and the full plan is to build up all four sides of that court. So it's a more of a gradual descent once you leave the pavement. So we're aware of that. It's just we wanted to do it during a growing season and a drier season, so we can get the grass and establish it. So that's on our radar. So that'll get done in the spring.
Okay. All right.
And I'll look into the lines. I'll go out with Karen again. I'll go take a deeper look, and I can easily report back on that hopefully soon for you.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee?
Tim, I'd like to just go back to the puddle for a moment. You said it was caused by settlement. Just in my driving by, sort of casually, it seemed that the puddle formed almost immediately after the paving, the very first rainstorm. And I'm curious how it was determined that it was settlement rather than a paving error that caused the puddle.
If I'm being honest, I'm taking Karen Galligan's word for it, and she told me I could throw her under the bus. But that was her. That's
nice of her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to do that, but that's above my knowledge, and so that was her take on it. So I trust her on that. So.
My first thought was get the contractor back in there to paving contractor to fix it, because it appeared, and again, all I know about it is what I've seen just driving by. But it looked like a paving error, and it looked like a warranty situation to me. Just because it happened it seemed like the first rainstorm after the pavement went down in settlement is something that, at least typically, takes place over time. And if it was settlement, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's likely something that will continue for, probably several years as the ground consolidates under the pavement, if that was the case. But I'm sure Karen had a reason for saying that. I'm very curious as to what it was, and and the proposed solution to it, so we don't end up sort of chasing our tail on this over and over, trying to fill in a hole that continually grows slowly over time.
Yeah. Okay. I can definitely approach her from that standpoint as well. I know that contractor's in town a lot, so best case scenario, maybe we can get them out there as well. So I'm happy to approach it from that
Thank you.
stand.
Who was the contractor, by the way? Do you recall?
Massachusetts Broken Stone.
Okay.
Mass Broken Stone.
Thank you.
Tim, can I ask you a question? And maybe you can weigh in, Andrew. I'm looking at these photographs. When was this paved?
Early November, Jen, is that correct? Off the top of my head.
I was gonna say like, yeah, mid-October, late October, early November. Yeah.
Freddie, can you?
And when it was paved, it looks like a. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Freddie, can you shoot those photographs over to Tim?
I just emailed them to you, Tim.
Oh,
I just
okay.
forwarded it.
I mean, there is a lengthy seam on the pavement that sure isn't settling. You couldn't possibly dribble a basketball with appropriately if you hit that seam that looks like it runs the length of the court. To me, anyway. I mean, that is substandard work. Did you take these pictures, Andrew?
No, they were forwarded to me.
And this paving was done in November. I got to take issue with Karen Galligan's opinion about this being. I'll leave aside the puddling. I'm not even looking at the puddling. This is that's a problem.
You see what I see, Mark? It seems like when they did 3 passes, there's like 2 distinct seams that go down it, and it just doesn't seem like it overlapped enough and patted them down.
That's a compression problem. It's not even a paving, but you pave and then you compress it, and it wasn't compressed properly. To me,
no,
that seems pretty clear.
So, I mean, my intent was to bring it up, and again, so Tim knew. Tim and I have been talking back and forth about this. He's been going through Karen, who contracted it out. So, wanted to bring up to the rest of the committee because it is they're requesting final payment, and like I said earlier, you know, if we make the final payment, we kind of lose all leverage.
Nope.
From my standpoint. So, if you guys feel differently, you tell me to go ahead and pay it. I'll pay it. But
no, that's fine. I mean, I'm happy to initiate this tomorrow and try to address it.
Yeah.
And it's possible as a reasonable explanation, but I guess I'd like to hear it. Is this what you were trying to do? You know, it's pretty bad.
Doesn't look right. Doesn't look very good. Not good quality paving. If that's it, yeah, it doesn't look right. It looks like there's a problem. I wouldn't pay the final bill yet.
Okay. Any other questions on the basketball court? I think Tim's going to follow up with Karen and look at it and get back to us.
Okay. Basketball court done.
All right. So, thanks, Tim, for attending.
Andrew, if you don't mind, can I ask some questions? Just because we have a bunch of other stuff with CPC going on. Just my other, I guess this is more directed to Freddie. As I guess a great update for you all, the lighting projects have finally been approved by Planning Board. So we are actively going through that right now. We're putting the bid package together and getting that all posted and out. And you know, long story short, the plan is to have everything built by April so that we can have a spring ball under the lights. But Musco, the lighting, the actual light poles we're able to buy direct from Musco as part of the Sourcewell Purchasing Collaborative here in the state. So I did receive the official quotes from them. And in order for those to get ordered, they do need PO numbers. And so I just wanted to put that on your radar as that needs to come from you all. I'm unfortunately not able to open those on my end. I did send those over a little while ago to Freddie, so I just wanted to see if there was an update, if those were created, and if not, if there was a timeline on getting those out.
Freddie?
Yeah, I can submit them tomorrow if I have the go-ahead here.
Oh, yeah, for the lighting? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't been informed. I don't think that all the permitting were done. So you're good to
Yes,
go?
we did sign off. I signed off on all that, what was it, over the weekend? No, Friday. And I handed it off to Jesse on Saturday. And last I heard it was on Sunday. Marnie Houlihan had them. So she had signed them so that both for the tennis court and the baseball field. So all the plans are signed by the planning board.
So I wouldn't approve something to fund something that hadn't gone through the process that we were guaranteed was going to happen when we, I mean, that's just.
Just want to make sure. I just want to make sure it was on the radar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Long time coming. I don't want it to go any longer. I just want this done.
Yeah.
So, all right. That's all I got. So
great. Thanks, Tim.
Cool. Great to see you guys. Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Tim.
All right. So next up, Historic Commission's concern on the old burial ground. And I think this came out of a meeting from historical. There were questions around the burial ground and how it was completed and or funded, who ran it. I know Freddie gave a response and timeline for the entire thing. The project was requested by the Historic Commission, and I think at that point that was
Kate Madison.
Yeah, Kate Madison was heavily involved in it.
Yes.
And then also when it was complete, I know I had questions specifically about it because I thought there were a couple that were still crooked, and Kate and the rest of the Historic Commission assured me, no, it was all done correctly.
Okay.
And at that point, I was not chair, I don't believe. But I was just driving by and I was like, it looked like some were still crooked. But I was told from the Historic Commission that no, it's complete and for what they had identified for the work to be done. So I don't know if there are other questions.
So I don't have any further questions at this point, but I do have a couple updates for the committee here, just on kind of further conversations that we've had after the emails I exchanged with Freddie a couple weeks ago. So with thanks to Freddie, she was able to send us a lot of information. I was able to look through the approved application for the project, which had a maintenance plan, as all of our CPC projects do. And for this particular project, it was made clear that after the master plan was completed, which includes the restoration of 89 headstones, then kind of ongoing maintenance would be transferred to the town DPW. So, and specifically in the application, the DPW agreed to do an annual inspection by way of hiring a qualified conservator to do that inspection work, and then come up with a maintenance plan on any new issues. So I checked with Karen Galligan on that. So the project was completed in 2018. And unfortunately, the planned inspections for 2019, 2020 haven't happened. But Karen did commit to doing an inspection in 2021. So what that will be able to tell us is, the issues that, our commission, historical commission, are seeing at this point, are those new issues that have developed over the last 2 years, 2+ years, with the conditions, or is it, the same recurring issues that either weren't fixed or weren't fixed properly. So I think that's really the next step here, is to do that inspection. Karen is on board with that. And she can't commit to doing any additional work until we know what the scope could possibly be. But one way or another, the application makes it clear that, you know, from here on out, the maintenance is kind of on the town side. And hopefully we'll get some information from the inspection this year.
Okay. So, and historical is going to lead that with Karen, right? Because I mean, we helped fund the original project per se to get that done. And then it was the applicant who worked with Karen. So at the time it was historical that worked with Karen to say that they were going to do that ongoing.
Yeah, so I think, so, you know, there's been some turnover in the historical commission. And as you mentioned, Kate Madison, who was really heavily involved in this, is sadly no longer with us. So I think there was just a lapse in, you know, the tracking the project and, you know, the paperwork and all of that. And, you know, even Karen said, you know, without nudging from historical, you know, the 2019 and 2020 inspections didn't get done. So at this point, you know, our commission knows that, you know, the onus is on us to, you know, kind of follow through and, you know, be a partner with DPW on that.
Okay.
You know, I have to comment here. Annie, I disagree. I don't think the onus is on the historical commission. This is a DPW issue. They told you that these inspections didn't take place because you didn't nudge them. Is that what I'm hearing?
I wouldn't say they didn't take place because we didn't nudge them, but it was easier to kind of let it fly off the radar without our nudging.
Well, this project was necessitated because it was off the radar of the DPW for decades. That is just unacceptable. And it's beyond our purview, I guess, to go into that. But I think that's disgraceful, and it is not on the historical commission.
And to kind of go off what I think Mark's remembering too, prior CPC member who is very close with the cemeteries in town, i.e. the wife of the funeral director, said that there's actual funds that the town has to actually like set aside specifically for the cemeteries to keep them in shape. So, you know, and just so if you need further nudging, I think it was from the veterans possibly side of it, but for further nudging for the DPW, you can remind them of that.
Okay.
But you know, we helped fund it because it was in such bad shape, some of the stones, and they were going to get worse due to acid rain and the angle that they were at currently, because the water would deteriorate them even more. It was to straighten them up. But yet I do, as Mark is referring to, that it was, and you as well, that the DPW, the town, was going to take over maintaining them going forward. And like it said in the application, that the funds were there to do it.
Got it. Okay.
There was a specific representation in the application to that effect.
Right. Well, thank you for that background. You know, I'm as you know, I'm new to this committee and historical commission, so I'm kind of just getting up to speed on these you know, past projects, and you know, it is something that's important to our commission. So we probably will follow it just because we really care, you know, about the burial grounds and our town, you know, our town assets like that. But understood that it's, you know, on them to maintain.
No, great. You know, happy to bring to light what we remember from the meetings as well. So
great.
Thank you. Any questions from other people? Committee members? Nope. All right.
Thanks, Dan.
Pardon?
No, thank you.
Okay. So next, fiscal 22 budget. Freddie. Freddie.
She was there. She just muted herself again, though.
Oh. Harley must be barking.
He's not.
Oh,
And when you guys have time, I have a good Harley story for you someday.
Sounds healthy. This is good.
Ate all my.
So, as I told you the last time, I had trouble with my Excel, and then I was working away at it, and I got the notice that we don't need it for tonight. And instead of sending you something crappy, instead of sending you something subpar, I think it can wait till next time. It's the same budget you had last time, and you know the point of using it was to go through and look at how much of each project you're taking out. And I'm asking for putting all the projects together and creating a whole package, because until you're sure you were doing like the trails that you voted for tonight.
okay.
Is that all right? And not waste your time looking at something, instead of the other word I used, I'll say not up to snuff. My usual high standards.
Appreciate that. So Betsy, can you just remind me when our next meeting?
It's February 10th.
Okay, yes, I can. Hold on. I think it's March 10th, if I'm not mistaken, but hold on. Look.
February 10th.
Thank you. I think it's February 10th, March 10th, and March 20th.
Okay. So February 10th. Freddie, is that, so I agree. And the other piece, for the budget piece, I talked with Freddie in terms of for the townhouse, having breakouts of what the bonding would look like if we say fully funded it or only half funded it, to give us an idea of, you know, instead of the whole thing or nothing, to give us a little bit of a range. I thought that would be helpful for us in the discussion. So, and I know that piece we hadn't gotten that piece back yet. So I am in favor of postponing that till next meeting as well, if everyone's online with that. And then, because we still have to vote on that one. I know we have the placeholder, but we didn't vote on whether or not we're gonna what we're gonna do with it. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Does.
Okay. All right. So we'll hold off on that one. MOU. So the memorandum of understandings. You know, we still need for the two projects from last year, we need those finalized because they never got finalized. And we need MOUs for at least the Trails Committee one. Which we need to work on the wording, first of all, for the warrant article, and then we can, you know, from that build out the MOU with the additional detail that we want. So that needs to be incorporated. I know, Mark, in the past, I think there was some discussion you were going to help tweak the one we had. Was there additional information you needed to do that?
I thought someone was going to send me one that.
I did email you one to your town email account.
Well, that's probably why I didn't get it.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, I sent you just an example of what the Arts Council uses.
Could I give you a different email address?
Yes. Yeah.
mwmurphyesq@gmail.com.
Okay, I'll forward it to there. Yep.
Everyone watching will be emailing you.
And Jen, can you CC me on that?
Yes. Yeah. I can.
Not my town,
CC
though.
me.
Oh, jeez. Not your town. Okay, I'll see.
CC me as well, Jennifer.
You're the one that Betsy sends all the emails out to. It's mills.asm@gmail.com.
Gotcha.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so we can move. And then, so Mark, if you can look at that and help out with a draft standard MOU form that we can start working on for everything, that'd be helpful too.
I would be happy to do that.
Okay. So the project funding and votes, I think that one we can push off. Well, we're going to have to because we don't have the budget piece yet. Push that one off. Everyone's in line with that. We'll roll that over to the next meeting. on the 10th. Golf course update. So the golf course, I know I think we talked about this, if not the last meeting, the meeting before that. The golf course was looking to use, in their original application, they had requested a putting green that, with the way the bids were coming back, and then we had to use the prevailing wage, that it got reduced. It was eliminated from the project because they didn't think they were going to have enough funds to do it. But when the project was all complete, there's actually enough funds left over that they can incorporate it, it looks like. So they had reached out, I say they, there was a request from, I think, Mark Purple, like, hey, can we still do this? We had indicated, yeah, put together a plan for what you're going to do. And I think with everything that's going on at the townhouse, I haven't talked to him directly, emails, whatnot. I think I'm sure he's got other higher priorities with town meeting and everything, but I'll reach out to him this week to see what he's thinking from the next phase, because the golf course committee was dissolved. It does look like, when I went out and looked at openings in the town, that there is a new golf course committee that they're trying to put people on. It's not, we're looking for members to participants to be on to help maintain the golf course or manage the golf course in some capacity. So not sure if that's who would fill out the application or, put in the request for this. So I think I would be in favor of just, getting the scope of work and adding it back into the original project and still using the same funds. So we don't have to go to town meeting again. And then my recollection was that's what we discussed, since we'd be using the same funds that were originally earmarked for the golf course. And I think I don't know if this came up with all the new members, but the reason why a putting green is really beneficial for the golf course is they can't hold tournaments there without it, because you're not allowed to actually practice on a hole that is part of the tournament. So, if you're a golfer, you want to practice your putting because you drive for show and you putt for dough, is the old saying. But they practice at the putting green before they start, and they said that they can't hold tournaments because you can't practice on the 9th before you tee off on the 1st. So that's why they view that as really beneficial. The other piece that the old golf course committee would like to do, but I don't think they can, would be to pave the parking area, because the golfers who come have been a little frustrated that they have to clean their car every time they want to clean their car after they go in there, because the crushed stone kicks up a lot of dust. But from a golf course standpoint, the putting green was the last, like, really real necessity that they saw to help the golf course be sustainable going forward. So, questions on that one?
Can I add something?
Yeah, Freddie.
So someone suggested, because you don't have a golf course committee and this CPC never runs projects, you need a project proponent, that maybe the capital committee that is overseeing other projects might be a place for this to land if we reached out to them when you talk to Mark Purple.
Okay.
Somebody has to own it, not, this committee's not going to do that, right? It's never chosen to in the past. And can I ask, I think, Benjamin, a question? The parking lot was part of the original funding. So if there was enough to pave it, that would still be within the scope of the application, but wasn't the problem with the
Impervious.
stormwater?
Yeah, so they chose, for whatever reason, when they designed the project, to leave that unpaved, and then when they did their drainage design, and in particular the sizing of the detention basin that's on the south side of the driveway up to the public safety facility, it was based on that whole area being pervious. You know, that rainwater would soak into the ground to some extent. So if they wanted to pave it, they'd have to come back before conservation and demonstrate that the drainage works that they put in can handle the additional flow that would be coming down out of that area. So the answer is they can do it, but they can't just hire a paver and get it done. They're going to have to come back before the commission and show that it'll work. And I suspect it would take some modifications to the downstream drainage works to get it to work correctly.
Yeah.
The reason I brought that up is, and I don't know that it's a CPC issue, in that when we went to town meeting, one of the big things was like, what's the value of the golf course to the public? And we promised them winter snowshoeing and cross-country skiing and sledding, and that the public would be allowed to be there. But I'm hearing there's some reluctance to open up that parking lot. I don't know if it's open now, but it should be for people to take advantage of it. But also, they don't want to plow it to disturb the material that's down there. Although we plow Breakneck Hill and Chestnut Hill, so I don't know. That was you don't have a golf course committee, but it was a CPC project, and I don't know who that would be to bring up the fact that that parking lot that CPA money paid for, that ensured at town meeting there would be winter public access to the townspeople, that parking lot that we paid for is available for that use. And I'm throwing that out wearing my not your consultant hat, but as a member of the public.
Freddie, a quick question. Maybe I can't recall off the top of my head, but the CR, the parking lot area was an envelope carved out, correct, on the overall lot that allowed for parking in that area, but it's still subject to the CR in terms of access, right? Or am I off base? Is that part of a separate lot? Is that part of the public safety law?
I don't know. Off the top of my head, I don't like to talk legal documents that I haven't looked at.
Yeah.
It is part of the CR, and when you have an envelope, that gives you other uses. So I'm not sure that the conservation restriction every restriction is written differently.
Yeah.
So it may not require public access in that CR. It allows it on the golf course, right?
Yeah, I wish we had extensive discussions about how to work the access when golf was not in season, so to speak.
So it may,
it's so long I can't remember.
We can look at it, but it allows it, but I don't know that there's another one in town that requires or gave the town permission. So this would be different. I don't know that it required it, except for we promised it at town meeting, It was, and I think the warrant article was written as such for the public to have access. I don't know that it specifically said for the parking lot to be open, but I think that I'm not sure who would take that as an issue, because again, we look at the project being complete, not how it's managed after the fact. I'm just throwing it out there.
So Freddie, I can tell you one thing because I live kind of close to the golf course.
You do?
I have seen when we had that big snowstorm right before Christmas, I think, or something. Whenever we had the big snow, there were lots of sledders that went easily, probably 100 yards down the street, lined up. People were not afraid to. I know they didn't go to the fire station, the park, but they parked over this way. And I have run into people not only from McNeil, Mark, but also people from Main Street, people who live on Middle Road, that walk, they walk through the rural cemetery, they walk up Middle Road, come through the rural cemetery, come over. But I agree too that if they didn't have to plow like this time of year, to have that open would be good for other residents, or whoever wanted to use it to be able to park would be helpful. So I'll ask that when I talk to Mark.
I think I would suggest even if you have to plow, then it becomes a maintenance cost. That parking lot was built for the purposes that we promised town meeting that golf course could be used for. And it wasn't one of the big things. It wasn't just for the golfing, that the regular citizens would have access.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I
I'll
think
ask Mark.
Parking lot closed?
Yeah, they put a gate at the end. It's not something it was ever in our plan, but they put a gate at the end right where they pull onto, I forget the name of the road now, but they named it
after
John Wilson?
John Wilson.
John Wilson Drive.
Oh, I didn't realize there was a gate there. I thought that was just left open.
Yeah, no, there's a gate, so you can't drive. I mean, you could easily walk underneath it, but you can't drive. But it's amazing. It's open to sell Christmas trees. So.
And the other thing is, we have a town that's not walkable from one side of town to another. And, if you live on the south side of town, you're not just walking over there. You can't get across Route 9 with your kids in their sleds. So how are you going to get there?
I agree. That's why I was saying that I know that it would still make it a lot more accessible to have that open. So I'll ask Mark. And the other piece too, I don't know if I brought this up last time, but I had heard that the golf course actually turned a profit this year with the coronavirus and people trying to get out. And one of the few activities people could do, I can tell you it was quite busy. Had a lot of golf balls in my yard.
Those were mine. I don't know how to golf, and my family made me go golf like 4 times.
Those are the pink ones?
Yes, and I lost a lot of balls. They're probably in the yard.
Were they dressed up like Minnie Mouse?
No Minnie, only Mickey's. Yeah, Andrew, sorry. Although I probably couldn't hit that far, so I don't know about that.
That's fine. But it has gotten a lot of use. And, before I can say that, Mark, you can chime in too, that I would say that it was really just like the neighborhood that would sneak on there in the winter. And I mean, when the sledders came out, but now I'm seeing, when I walk the dog, there's a lot of other people that are from all over town that come there, because it's a great piece of land, and to have it open like that is very special. So I'll follow up with Mark on that one. Any other questions on the golf course? All right. So review agendas, timelines. I think we kind of already did that. The next meeting is February 10th. And then
you have two in March. I think that was because we thought we were having town meeting in March.
All right, let's keep those for now, just from our timeline in terms of, in case the next one we don't get everything ironed out for the MOUs or the votes and the budget. Let's just keep those as a placeholder. I think it's easier to cancel later, if everyone's okay with that.
Yep.
I take that as a yes.
Yes.
Let's see. So that brings us to the end. Unless there's, I know we didn't really there's nothing on here for other items before us. There's only a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
All those in favor? Mills, yes. Ann?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Dorianne?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
and Mills, yes. Okay. Hey, Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New
You
Year.
too.
Happy New Year.
I hope everyone had an amazing day. I know it was I had a good
Happy Inauguration Day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Happy
Yes.
Inauguration Day.
I'm not gonna, anyway, it was a great day. And Betsy and Freddie, thanks for everything to get this meeting put together. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for sending that thing, Jen, too. I'll look at it. Thanks.
Take care.
All right.
Okay.
See you later.
Bye,
Thanks, everybody.
everybody.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.